Before we dive into tonight's unsettling tales, let's take a brief journey into a different kind of night in Japan, one filled with light, flavor, and fleeting beauty. Let me introduce you to TokyoTreat, a monthly snack box prepared with Japan's coolest, craziest, and most exclusive snacks. Every month they send a delicious surprise straight from Tokyo, right to your door. Rare Kit Kats, limited edition noodles, chips, sweets, and more. This month's theme is Sakura Nights Snack Fest, inspired by Yozakura, the magical tradition of viewing cherry blossoms after dark. Inside the box, I got the Sakura matcha wafers, crunchy wafer rolls layered with rich matcha, and just a hint of floral sakura. One bite and it's like standing there under a glowing tree on a quiet Tokyo street. And the ponzu soup noodles, tangy, savory, and citrusy, the perfect late night comfort food. I also devoured the matcha latte Kit Kats, green tea, and creamy vanilla in that signature crisp bite. Trust me, this box is full of addictive surprises. From the Twilight truffle chips, to sweet and sour gummies, and Sakura sandwich cookies. Every bite is a piece of Japan. But maybe you're craving something a little more traditional, something slower, softer, and deeper. And that's where Sakuraco comes in. Sakuraco is a monthly Japanese artisan snack box, carefully curated, with handmade treats from local makers all across Japan. Think mochi, dorayaki, manju, and more. Plus beautifully selected tea, and even a piece of traditional homeware in every box. This month's theme is Moonlit Sakura, capturing the quiet elegance of cherry blossoms at night, when the world goes still and beauty becomes something almost ghostly. The snack highlights for me, the Sakura dorayaki, soft and sweet with a floral twist, the Sakura shrimp senbei, light and savory, the Sakura cream cookie, delicate, buttery, unforgettable. My personal favorites were the Sakura mochi, gently infused with the scent of sakura leaves, and the white peach jelly, sweetened with Okayama Prefecture's peaches and a touch of liqueur. Pro tip, chill it before you eat it. It's unreal. All of it pairs with the included Sakura hibiscus tea, and you even get a beautiful seasonal wagashi plate to complete the experience. I love mine. So whether you're into modern, quirky flavors or timeless Japanese tradition, TokyoTreat and Sakuraco offer a taste of Japan's night in every bite. Perfect as a gift or your own little midnight ritual. Use the link below and my code JNightmares for an exclusive discount on either box or both. And now, as the last sakura petals drift to the ground, as the air grows colder, stay with me. Coming up in this Alone at Night collection, a demonic sleep paralysis episode, an ongoing stalker story, a solo camper experiences something truly paranormal, and deep within a city morgue, something can be heard. All this and more. The lights are off, the streets are empty, and you're not alone. Here's the bells. I haven't had many experiences that I'd call supernatural. Just a few odd things here and there, but this was on a different level. This happened during the winter of my first year at university. I'd gotten home from a long, exhausting shift at my part-time job. My apartment was a typical 1K setup. Tiny, functional, and cheap. I dropped onto my bed, leaning against the frame while I stretched my legs into the kotatsu in the middle of the room, and I turned on the TV. Let me try and paint the layout for you. When you enter the kitchen area, there's a closet immediately on the right wall. My bed was set up along the same wall, parallel to it. Right in front of the closet, across from the bed, On the left-hand wall, I had my TV and bookshelf, the kotatsu, sat centered in the room. Hopefully that makes sense. I was broke back then. I had just started my job. So my bed was this cheap metal-framed pipe bed, the kind with a thin sheet of wood and some basic cushioning to sleep on. That night, I was so wiped out, I didn't even climb into bed. Instead, I just slid my body halfway underneath and I stuck my feet in the kotatsu and I passed out right there on the floor. I don't know how long I slept, but at some point in the middle of the night, I woke up. It was still dark outside the window, so I figured it had to be some time deep in the night. I tried to move, but I couldn't. That's when I realized I was in sleep paralysis. I'd experienced it before, back in high school, when I used to get worn out from club activities. So at first I wasn't too freaked out. I just thought, ugh, God, it's been a while. And I tried to stay calm. But then I heard something. A creak. A soft, unmistakable creak coming from the wooden board above my head. From the bed. I was 100% alone in my apartment, so I started to feel my heart rate quicken, but then I told myself to calm down. I tried to brush it off. Maybe it was just the house settling, but then came another. And a third. That's when I knew someone, something, was on top of the bed. I was lying face down, with my head positioned near the foot of the bed, and my eyes facing the head of the bed, near the window and the pillow. And those creaks were moving from the closet end towards the pillow end, step by step, steadily, deliberate intervals. Something was walking across the bed from where my feet would be to where my face was pointed. Panic gripped me. I tried to move, but the paralysis held me completely. Not a finger, not a toe. I even tried to scream, but no sound came out. I don't know if it was because of the fear or the paralysis, but I knew I was trapped, and the creaking continued. Step after step, but then it stopped, right above my head. I was so tense I thought that my heart would give out, and then something started to come into view. At the very edge of my vision, right there, on the rim of the bed frame, I saw fingers. Thin, long, and pale fingers, curling over the edge of the bed, 2 hands gripping the bed from above, and between them, something began to lower itself down. Black, shifting, slow. Hair. Long, black hair began to descend. It was like a nightmare, except I knew I was awake. Every part of my body screamed at me not to look, not to let my eyes meet whatever face was coming next. I shut my eyes tight. I clenched them close with everything I had, desperately willing myself not to look. I didn't want to see the face that hair belonged to. I didn't want to know what was staring down at me from the darkness. I don't know how long I stayed like that. Minutes, hours, but eventually I noticed light. The room had started to brighten. Morning. I could move again. The sleep paralysis had lifted. I slowly sat up and looked at the bed. No one was there. Just my neatly folded futon. As if nothing happened. Was it a dream? Maybe. But it felt far too real. I can still remember the sound of the creaking wood, echoing softly above me. I can still feel the cold sweat on my back, trapped beneath the kotatsu blanket. After that, I never had another experience like that in my apartment. Nothing else strange ever happened there again. But I stopped sleeping in the kotatsu. Not because I think I'd experience something like that again, but because I know I could. And that's enough of a reason for me. It happened on the last Sunday of the New Year holiday. I'd been lounging around the house all break, feeling sluggish, so that night I decided to take our dog out for a walk, to shake off the cobwebs. It had been a while. Normally it's my wife who takes him out, so when I clipped on the leash, our little black toy poodle looked at me, confused but happy. It didn't take long before he was tugging me down the familiar riverside path. It was a cold, still night, the kind that made the city feel distant, quiet. We passed a few night owls here and there, an elderly couple in matching tracksuits, jogging slowly side by side, a younger woman with earbuds in and a determined look on her face, maybe trying to work off the holidays, the usual types. After a while, I heard a voice from behind, loud, breathless. "Good boy, that's it. Keep going, good job, keep it up." I turned around expecting to see someone walking a dog, and sure enough, a man was jogging towards us, a little older than me, maybe mid-40s, wearing a saggy grey tracksuit, his hair combed neatly into a side part that gave him a slightly dated look. His round face was red from exertion, and he was panting hard, but smiling. As he caught up to me, he slowed down and gave me a polite nod. "Good evening?" "Evening," I replied. "Beautiful night for a walk, huh? You're out with your pup, I see." "Yeah, I figured I should stretch my legs before heading back to work tomorrow." I gestured down at my dog, who was eagerly sniffing every crack in the path. He looked down and smiled warmly. "Toy poodle, so cute. Yeah, ours is a mixed breed. Some might say a mutt. I don't like that, though. He might be nothing fancy, but he's family, you know?" I nodded, out of habit, but as I looked down to where he gestured, I saw nothing. There was no dog. Just the man. I tried not to stare. He didn't seem to notice. "My daughter brought him home one day years ago. Rescued him from under an overpass, would you believe it? My wife and I were dead set against keeping him at first. We thought she'd lose interest, but she didn't. She took care of him every single day. Eventually I got attached too. 15 years we've had him now." I glanced again, still. No sound of paws on the pavement. No collar jingling. "These days, I'm the one who takes him for all his walks and feeds him. I guess he's more mine than anybody else's now." He paused, staring lovingly at the empty space beside him. I opened my mouth to say something, unsure what, but he spoke first. "My wife and daughter, they don't really talk to me as much as they used to. Honestly, this guy's the only one who keeps me company these days." He gave another soft laugh, but it didn't reach his eyes. Then all at once his expression changed. He checked his watch, wiped his forehead with the towel around his neck. "Oh no, I'm late. I gotta get back. I got to prep meals, I got laundry to sort, shopping to do. If I don't move fast, they'll kill me." That last line was followed by another awkward chuckle. A joke? Maybe? But something in his voice didn't sound like he was joking. As he dabbed his forehead, the towel slipped slightly. And that's when I saw it. Beneath the towel, fastened snug around his neck, was a black leather dog collar. Right in the center was a small silver tag. It read, Yuji. I froze. Yuji. That must have been the dog's name. But now he was the one wearing it. The man tucked the towel back into place, nodded at me with a cheerful smile, and turned to jog away. "I'll see you again sometime," he called out over his shoulder. And he went off, dragging a frayed leash behind him, its metal clip scraping softly against the pavement. Trailing behind him, like the ghost of a bond he couldn't let go. I stood there for a while, just watching the darkness swallow him up. My dog had stopped pulling, and was sitting beside me, quietly, maybe sensing the shift in my mood. Some people might have found that man strange, unsettling even. I mean, I did at first. It was a very strange encounter. But on reflection, and I think about that little interaction a lot, mind you, I didn't see someone crazy. I saw someone who cared. Someone who had loved deeply, maybe too deeply, and someone who had no one left but the memory of that love. Someone maybe not getting much love elsewhere, I guess. I still think of that guy time to time. I wonder if he's okay. If he still walks the river path at night, whispering kind words to a friend only he can see. And honestly, I hope to run into him again someday, because no one that carries that kind of love should ever have to walk alone. It began with something seemingly minor, barely worth mentioning at first, just one of those weird, uncomfortable moments we all experience on public transportation. At least that's what I told myself. I was on my way home, sitting quietly on the evening train. It was already dark out, the windows reflecting only the dim glow of the carriage lights, and that's when I noticed him. He was standing a little ways off, but I could feel his eyes on me. He looked to be around 180 centimeters tall, close to 6 foot. In his 40s, maybe. He reminded me vaguely of Tagaki, round-faced, somewhat haggard. Hi, Jay here. I will put a link to this Japanese comedian in the description if you want to contextualize this story a little bit more. Back to the story. He wore a tired-looking grey suit and a long grey overcoat. The kind of outfit that might have once looked pretty good but now just hung off him, like a shell, worn, faded. I tried not to meet his gaze. I didn't want to make eye contact. I'd glance at my phone and then look up subtly. Each time I looked up, I saw him, still staring. It was really creepy, but this particular line passed through an entertainment district, imagine the air quotes. Weirdos weren't exactly rare. I told myself not to overthink. I got off at my usual stop, went home, and told myself it was nothing. That was around March. A few months passed. I think it was early summer when I saw him again. Same man, same blank fixed stare, watching me from just far away enough to make it look like he wasn't to others, but close enough that I could feel it burning into me. Again? I thought. A strange mix of irritation and unease built in my chest. I looked down and fiddled with my phone, trying to act as if I hadn't even noticed. But then, through the swaying crowd of the train, he moved. Despite the rush hour congestion, he pushed his way closer until he stood directly behind me. My heart started racing. This train line had a bad reputation for gropers. It wouldn't be the first time I had had to brace myself for someone trying something. I quietly opened the phone dialer and hovered my thumb over 110 110, ready to call the police the moment he tried anything. But he didn't. He just stood there. He didn't say a word. He didn't touch me. Just stared at the back of my head. I could see his reflection in the train window. And then I noticed something else. He was sniffing. Subtle, low, deliberate. He was smelling my hair. The urge to scream was almost unbearable, but I froze. I felt like I was trapped, paralyzed between disgust and fear and maybe anger. I didn't call the police. There was nothing they could do. Not really. Not for something like this. So again, I went home, alone, at night. Another month passed. It was around July or August. This time, it didn't happen on the train. I had just left my station and I was walking home when I felt it, the sensation that someone was behind me. I glanced over my shoulder. Him. Again. He was following me. I moved off to the edge of the sidewalk and slowed down, pretending to check something in my bag. He passed me, but didn't go far. He kept looking back, over and over, and then he stopped. I was alone on a dark street with him up ahead. He just stood there, still, watching. Then he turned around and started coming back my way. I didn't wait to see what he'd do, I ran into the nearest convenience store, heart hammering against my chest, and I waited. After a while, I guessed it was safe, and I'd calmed myself down a little, so I decided to make a break for home. The next time wasn't long after, maybe a week or two. That night I was working late. By the time I got off at my station, it was past midnight. The streets were empty. The only sound was the echo of my own footsteps. That's when I heard the soft whir of bicycle tires behind me. A bike passed me, slow, a little too slow. As it went by, the rider craned his neck unnaturally, eyes fixed on me the entire time. My blood ran cold when I realized it was him. He wore a simple t-shirt and shorts this time, but there was no mistaking that face, that stare. Even after he passed, he kept turning back. Then, like before, he stopped, just stood there. Then came the worst part. He turned his bike around and started pedaling towards me. I sprinted to a nearby business hotel and rushed inside. Somewhere in the safety of the lobby, I broke down and I called the police. Tears were streaming down my face. I made such a scene. They sent a patrol car to drive me home, but the fear didn't leave me. I hoped that would be the end of it. Well, I prayed, in fact, but I was proved wrong. Because on the 5th encounter, I wasn't so lucky. It was earlier in the evening, still vaguely light out. I was walking home when he suddenly appeared from the beginnings of shadows. No warning, no sound. He grabbed me. I felt his hands on my body. I screamed and I thrashed, finally breaking free. It was him. Again. I screamed again, louder this time. A staff member from a nearby restaurant heard and ran over, staying with me while I called my boyfriend to come get me. I didn't call the police that time. I'd done it just a few weeks ago, and part of me felt like they wouldn't take me seriously again. You might think this is stupid, but if you saw their faces and their expressions as I explained what was happening to me, their sheer indifference, you'd maybe understand. Stalking wasn't taken very seriously. Let me tell you about the most recent encounter. Just last Friday. We'd had a work party, and I was walking home from the station, a little buzzed, but in a good mood. That's when I saw someone who unfortunately looked very familiar. Same man, same grey suit, same grey coat, just like the first time. And again, he was just staring. But this time something snapped. I didn't hesitate. I ran. And then, so did he. He chased me. But he was heavy, slower than me. I'd been on the track team back in school, and that probably saved me. By the time I got home and locked the door behind me, I was shaking. I slid down the wall and sat there for a long time, just listening for footsteps outside. Now, I don't know what to do. I think I have a stalker. Well, I know I have a stalker. This isn't just about discomfort anymore. It's not just some creepy guy on the train. This has been going on for months, across seasons, across stations, from the safety of the crowd in the quiet of the night. There's no end to this. Not yet, because it's still happening to me. And when I walk home at night, I don't feel alone. I feel watched. And I feel followed. And if it's happening to me, maybe it's happening to someone else, too. Hi, note from me, Jay here. This story was posted online in August 2020, and there has been no follow-up by the OP. Let me tell you one of the creepiest things that's ever happened to me. Something that still gives me the chills when I think about it. This took place about 4 or 5 years ago, back when I was in university. I had just gotten my motorcycle, and almost every day after classes, I'd take it out for a spin around the Hachioji area. It became a bit of a routine for me. I'd ride until I got lost and then I'd try and find my way back. That day the weather was clear and warm. I was in a good mood, so I pushed myself further into the mountains than usual, deeper and deeper, letting the road lead me. Eventually I came across a sign that read, "Private road, beyond this point, forestry personnel only." Naturally, that made me more curious. I don't know why, but something about it sparked this dumb sense of adventure in me. So I turned the handlebars, and I kept going. It was around 5 o'clock in mid-October. The sun was already dipping low into the western sky, and dusk was just about to take over. The road ahead was rough and unpaved, with grass growing between old tire tracks. Less of a road, more of a scar through the woods. I kept going though. After a while, the scenery started to shift. There were terraced fields, clearly shaped by human hands, and then an old weathered bus stop sign. It looked like it had been standing there for decades. Soon after, I passed through a brick tunnel, the kind that looked like it had belonged to a time long forgotten. And then I saw something, a small settlement nestled in the valley beyond the tunnel. It was dim. My headlight barely lit the way, but I could make out the silhouette of the place. A narrow stream ran through the center of it, splitting the village in two. The central area was surprisingly paved. There were buildings with watchtowers, some sort of structure that looked almost ceremonial. But there wasn't a single soul in sight. No movement, no sound, just dusk pressing in like a blanket. And this strange little village that looked like it hadn't seen life in years. It looked positively abandoned. I must have stood there for a while, just taking it in. There was a strange excitement, like I'd stumbled on a secret no one was supposed to find. Eventually I decided to head back. I figured I'd bring some friends along next time, so I tried to memorize the route on the way out. That's when it happened though. Suddenly, the engine cut out. Just died, no warning. And I instantly knew I was screwed. I didn't even bother checking. I only had a PHS back then. No signal, obviously. And out here, deep in the mountains, no one was coming. I felt like I could wait a year and not see another human out here. I started to panic. I kept kicking the starter, once, twice, over and over. My heart was pounding. I really didn't like the idea of being lost in the middle of nowhere. But then finally, it coughed back to life. I let out a huge sigh of relief when I gripped the handlebars and I got ready to go. But the moment I started moving, the handlebars twisted sharply. Even though I was on level ground, I stopped, looked up, and there, lit by the beam of my headlight, rows upon rows of tombstones. Massive clusters of gravestones packed tight into the grass along the road. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Just standing there in silence, like they'd been watching me the whole time. All the blood drained from my face. I didn't stop to think. I turned and sped out of there, speeding down the mountainside like my life depended on it. I couldn't even remember the way back. I just rode. Later, I convinced a few friends to go back with me and search for that phantom settlement I found. But we never found it again. What we did find, though, was almost worse. A crumbling cluster of Jizor statues, tiny stone effigies meant to comfort the spirits of lost children. Dozens of them, left to decay. And nearby, what looked like the remains of an old workers' barracks, probably from when they were building a dam, a tattered place, forgotten by time. We never found that village again. I still think about it sometimes, especially when I'm riding alone at night. Was it just an abandoned place that I got lucky enough to stumble into once? Or was it never supposed to be found in the first place? This happened fairly recently. I work at a hospital, but I'm not a doctor. I'm a care worker. The hospital I work at has a staff-only elevator. You need to scan an electronic key for it to work, kind of like a Suica card, you know, the type that you use on the trains, or like a hotel key card. The elevator goes down to 2 basement levels, B1 and B2. My key card doesn't let me go down to the basement. If I try pressing the buttons for those floors, nothing happens, totally locked out. So what's down there, you might ask? The morgue. Only doctors and nurses are allowed to go down there. Not us care workers, it's totally off limits. One night though, during a late shift, things were really slow. Like, really quiet. I was bored out of my mind, just snooping around the desk drawers out of curiosity. I know it's bad. I discovered something pretty interesting there. The master key card. That's when the little devil on my shoulder started whispering, "Come on, let's see what's down there. Let's check out the morgue." My curiosity got the better of me. My heart was pounding. I swiped the master key and I pressed the button for B2. The light turned on. Just like that. I was in too deep now. My mind raced with excuses. Like, I just pressed the button and it worked. I didn't mean to. As the elevator descended, I was already sweating by the time the doors opened. To my surprise, it wasn't all that dark down there. The lights were on and it looked normal, not scary. On the wall, an arrow pointed the way. Body storage room. I figured maybe it's lit up like this so families visiting the deceased or identifying loved ones aren't spooked. If that makes sense. It made sense to me. Still, my heart was hammering in my chest. But I had to go forward. I had to see it. I followed the arrow step by step. At the end of the hall were 3 doors, 3 rooms, and from one of them, I heard something. A woman's voice. She was chanting softly, over and over. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. It sounded like an elderly woman, like a grandmother. That was it. I froze. And in that moment, it didn't register as something paranormal. I just assumed it was a staff member, maybe doing a ritual or some kind of prayer for someone. After all, it's Japan. That sort of thing happens often. But something about it didn't quite sit right with me. That calm, unwavering voice. In the dead silence of the morgue at night, the fact that I was alone down there. Yeah, that was my cue to leave. I turned and headed back. I got out of there without seeing a single person. But that wasn't the end of it. Because a few days later, I got caught. Turns out the elevator logs every trip. It records the time, the floor, everything. And there are cameras. Plenty of them. So I got chewed out bad. I deserved it. I put my hands up. I shouldn't have been so curious. But then they said something that made my blood run cold. Well, I guess it's lucky for you that there was no one down there in the morgue with you that night. Otherwise, things could have been a lot worse. I blinked. What? I heard someone down there. I heard an old woman chanting, I swear. The supervisor looked at me, and he said, "That's impossible. No one was down there. No one was in or out of the morgue that entire night except for you. You probably scared yourself, sneaking around like that. Or maybe you learned something. What happens when you go mess around somewhere where you don't belong?" Was it my mind playing tricks on me? A hallucination from the stress or the guilt? Not likely, in my opinion. Or did I really hear something? Someone. Down there. Alone in the morgue. I haven't been back down to B2 since. I haven't even touched that master key again. But even now, sometimes late at night when I pass by the elevator, and when I hear the distant mechanical hum of it descending, I get the chills. Because sometimes Only now and then, I think I can hear that voice again. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. I don't think I was alone down there. I guess I learned that when you are alone at night, some places are better left unexplored. This happened to me a few years ago, back when I was still a student. Every year I had this little tradition I'd do, spending one night alone out in the mountains. Not proper mountaineering or anything serious like that. Just a solo trip deep enough into the woods to feel off-grid. This particular night was like all the others. I'd set up camp, cooked a meal, and now I was sitting there, alone by the fire, poking the embers and zoning out. The woods around me were quiet, almost too quiet. No rustling, no insects, not even the occasional hoot of an owl. There were zero hoots. Just the distant crackle of firewood and the subtle hiss of steam rising from my pot. The air was cool. The stars were out, and I was surrounded by the thick scent of damp leaves and smoke. Maybe 15-20 minutes had passed, like that. Me just sitting alone, staring into the flames. I started thinking it was about time to turn in. I stretched a little, yawned, and lazily glanced around the clearing. I got the shock of my life. It was standing just beyond reach of the firelight, maybe 20 meters away, off to my back right, nestled in the shadowy gaps between the trees. There was this shape, a pale blue-white glow, like moonlight on skin. I squinted. The hell is that? I leaned forward slightly, trying to get a better look, and that's when I realized it was a face. Just a face, floating in the dark. No body, no outline, just a man's face, staring straight at me from the darkness between the trees. And the height. God, the height. That thing was at least 10 meters off the ground, just hovering there in the middle of the night, expressionless and silent, watching me. You'd think I'd scream or panic, but I didn't. I just stared. I wasn't sure if it was shock or exhaustion or both, but I oddly felt calm. It wasn't fear I felt at first. It was confusion. I was trying to piece it all together. What was I looking at? Was it some kind of weird trick of the light? A branch? Mist? A hallucination? Something caught in the trees up there? I don't know how long we stared at one another, but maybe it was a minute or two. And then, just like that, it vanished. Gone. No sound, no warning, just disappeared into the trees. I blinked a few times and shook my head, rubbed my eyes. I looked around again. Nothing. No face, no movement, just the woods and the fire. I exhaled slowly and looked back into the flames, figuring I'd imagined it or something. But then, there it was. Right across from me. It was back, and it was sitting on the other side of the fire. The same face, lit now by the glow of the flames. A man in his 40s maybe, a blank expression, eyes permanently fixed on me. It was just there, like it had been sitting there the whole time. I froze, my heart dropped. But instead of screaming or backing away or running like hell, I did something weird. I said, "The hell do you want?" It just came out of my mouth. Not, "Who are you? What is that?" Just, "What the hell do you want?" I don't know why. I wasn't trying to be brave, it was just instinct. And the second I said that, the face vanished. Gone. No trace. Like it had never been there. I've thought about it a lot since then. Maybe it wanted something. Maybe it was trying to say something. But whatever it was, I don't think I was the one it meant to talk to. Or maybe I just didn't give it the reaction it was hoping for. You have to wonder. An expression like the one I saw in the woods revealing itself to me, alone. I wonder what happened to the owner of that expression. That was the only time anything like that ever happened during my solo nights in the mountains. I kept the tradition going for a while, but that one trip, that one moment, it stuck with me. Now, every time I'm out in the woods alone at night, I can't help but glance up into the trees. Just to check. Let me start by saying this is a true story. No embellishments, no creative flourishes. Just the memory of a night I still can't fully explain. One that's kept me from ever fishing alone again. It happened one summer, about 7 years after the Great East Japan earthquake. You might have heard of it. The tsunami, the devastation, the lives lost. The scars it left behind weren't just physical. Some were different. Back then I was living in Miyagi Prefecture, and I'd been an avid fisherman since long before the earthquake. And after everything, fishing became kind of a healing ritual for me. When the ports were destroyed, it hurt to see those places. So many memories reduced to rubble. But slowly over the years, the coastline was rebuilt. Fishing resumed. Life pushed forward. I often fished with my friends. But that summer I found myself needing solitude, the kind only the sea can offer. So one warm August evening, I packed my gear, grabbed a thermos of coffee, and made the hour-long drive from the city to a quiet port I hadn't visited before the earthquake. It had been rebuilt entirely, so the layout was unfamiliar to me. As I drove down the narrow mountain road towards the sea, I noticed how dark everything was. No streetlights, no lamps on the dock, just the hum of my headlights cutting through thick mist. The port itself had 4 breakwaters. One ran along the base of the mountain, another mirrored it on the seaside. A third connected them, forming the docking area, and the fourth, a narrow finger of concrete, stretched from a small island out into the sea. The last one was known for good catches, but it required crossing a narrow strip of land from the seaside breakwater, and I wasn't about to wander onto an unfamiliar island alone at night. I parked by the seaside breakwater and I stepped out into the still, salty air. The only sounds were the soft lapping of water and the occasional creak of old ropes swaying in the breeze. Not another soul in sight, no cars, no boats, just me, my rod, and the dark sea. I set up quickly and cast my line. The water was calm, almost too calm. And that's when I noticed something. A figure, faint but unmistakably human, standing at the far end of the breakwater. It wasn't moving, just standing, motionless, facing the sea. I paused, thinking maybe someone had gotten here before me. But there was no car, no footsteps, nothing but the shape barely illuminated by the distant beam of my headlamp. I called out, just a soft, "Hello?" No response. The air suddenly felt thick, charged. I thought maybe I was being silly, letting my nerves get to me. But still I reeled in and started walking back towards my car, keeping my eyes on that figure. As I reached the breakwater entrance, I paused. The figure was gone. I blinked, and I scanned the entire stretch of concrete with my flashlight, just open space, no shadows, no sign anyone had been there. The breakwater wasn't long, maybe 30, 40 meters at most. and it was dead straight. There was no ladder to climb down, no railings, no side alcoves to hide in, and the water around it was still. Quiet. Calm. If someone had run, I would have heard footsteps surely, splashing, something. But there was nothing. Just the sea, lapping gently against the concrete. My own breath, and that strange feeling that kind of crawls up your back, all the way up to your neck when you know you're being watched. But you just can't find the eyes. I stood there, rooted, trying to make sense of it. I hadn't imagined it. There was someone there. I know there was. Then, in the silence, I felt it. A sudden pressure in the air, like something had shifted behind me. I turned around, fast. No one. But the wind stopped, and in that stillness I realized something else. I hadn't heard a single insect all night. No buzzing, no chirping, just the water. And now, even that seemed quieter, thicker, like the sound was being swallowed. I didn't want to wait around to figure out what was going on, but I stood there for a moment, frozen. Then something sharp pierced the silence, a high-pitched ringing in my ears, sudden and painful. I stumbled backwards, clutching my head. The sound was unnatural, electric, almost mechanical, but layered beneath it was something else, a voice, some kind of groan. It lasted only a second or two, but then it stopped. My instincts screamed at me, leave now. I bolted for the car, threw everything into the trunk, and peeled out of the lot, tires screeching on wet concrete. But the mountain road had another surprise waiting for me. Halfway up, my headlights hit a barricade, large metal pipes, like the kind used at a construction site, maybe for scaffolding or something like that. They were laid across the road in a do not enter kind of pattern. That hadn't been there before. I would have seen it. I'd driven down that road less than an hour ago. The pipes were thick, rusted and heavy. No way one person could have moved them alone. Not without equipment. And certainly not silently. I couldn't understand it, but I needed to go. I got out and tried to push one. It barely budged. Then I felt it again, that same ringing, only this time, under it, a low, wet moan, like someone crying out but muffled, distant, from beneath the ground, or the water. Panicking, I forced myself to focus. I got behind the pipes and I pushed with everything I had. After a few moments, I cleared just enough space to squeeze my car through. I didn't stop until I hit the convenience store back in town. Inside, under harsh fluorescent lights, I bought a bag of salt, and without hesitation, I poured it over myself and my car. People stared. I didn't care. I drove home shaking. That should have been the end of it. But over the weeks that followed, strange things started happening. Whenever I went to fish at night, even somewhere else, that ringing would return. Always at the shoreline, always in my own car. Sometimes I'd hear that groan again. It was becoming clearer each time. And once I parked near another port, I swear I saw it. That same figure, far off, at the end of the dock, silent, still, watching. Eventually I got rid of my car. It was a red second-hand Prius. Since then I've fished during the day only, exclusively. Never alone, never near that port. If you ever find yourself on that quiet stretch of Miyagi coastline, and you see a figure at the end of the breakwater, standing perfectly still, turn around. Whatever it is, I think it doesn't want company. And it doesn't like to be seen.